to give us what is supposed to be to us. We pray all that in Jesus Christ's mighty name. Amen.
And thank you so much for the word of prayer. And we want
Welcome.
to, okay, we want to welcome all of you. Thank you so much for joining. And we want to thank the teachers that have made this possible. Okay. We shall mute you, but in case you want to say something, kindly you raise up your hand and then you do like how we usually do it. Allow me now to welcome our facilitator, Teacher Ita, to take us through today's session. Teacher Ita, you're most welcome.
Thank you, Teacher Stephen. Good evening, everyone. I hope we are well. I hope we are having a good day. So I'll be taking you through Teacher 3. My name is Teacher Ita. I want to believe each one of us can see my name on the screen. Oh, okay. So maybe before we start, make us to just do something very small. You can you're free to the chat is open, I believe. Is it Teacher Stephen? Teacher Stephen?
Yes, Teacher Ita?
I would like to know if the chat is open.
The chat, yes, let me open it. Let me open it.
So the first thing we are going to do maybe as an icebreaker, I would like maybe some of the people that can send a message to share with us, which if you're a character in a novel or a short story, what kind of character would you be and why?
Teacher Ita, it is open.
Yes. Let members just send in a message. We can just look through and maybe talk about why they would want to do that particular character from any novel or short story that you have read. I am waiting. If you are to be a character in any novel or short story that you have read, which one would you be and why? Just pick one person from your class and let them write.
That is, from part one, is the attempting one item, and from part two, is also the attempting one item. You are supposed to answer 3 examination items.
The question is, if you were to be, if you were a character in a novel or a short story, what kind of character would you be and why? Why would you choose to be that particular character, depending on the novels that you have read? Well, it looks like people scared of sharing which character they would be. Maybe we can just go on with our class, but we have different characters in our novels. So if you can connect with one of them, or maybe you have a different kind of admiration towards one of them, there should be reasons as why you admire that particular person. And so that is why I just wanted us to share so that I can know uh, which novel we are doing. So can everyone hear me? If you can hear me, please let me know. Can everyone hear me? Teacher Stephen, you seem to think my network is bad. I want to be sure that I'm
Yes, teacher, I muted all of them so they cannot unmute.
okay, but you can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you well.
Okay, so our objectives for today, we are going to mainly understand the key aspects of the novel, familiarize with the explanation structure, and learn strategies for answering context questions and SE questions. But as you can see on our screen, we have those objectives listed. One, we shall analyze and approach both context and SE questions effectively. Then we should be able to describe the structure of the literature, SE, explain different elements of the novel, apply exam techniques to improve performance. Generally, the goal right now is the exam. How do we get through the exam? Because we have read the novels, we have understood the novels, we have enjoyed the characters, we have related to some of those things depending on how they appeal to us, how they connect to our society, how they're relevant to our lives and everything. We have discussed so much, but at this point, the goal is to pass the exam. The goal is to get to score the best mark, and the goal is for us to get what we deserve. So as we prepare for our final exam, which is in a few days, because our exam is going to be on the 20th of November, that means we have a very, very short time. In consideration, you would want to consider to have only 1 month. So anyone that thinks they have more than you are, you need to reconsider your plan. So we have very little time. So at this point, I want to believe each one of us has read all the novels that were presented to us by our teachers. We have read and made some analysis. We have understood generally what it is about. So now we're just going to take ourselves through and remind ourselves of some of the things that our teachers have taught us, but most importantly, get ready for the exam. So at the end of our session, we shall have, I believe that each one of us will be able and will be confident enough to attempt to attempt the final unit exam. So I want us to go through a bit of the basics because the truth is, if you do not understand the basics of the paper, it might be difficult for you to, to understand what exactly is required of you. Because if you understand the basics of the paper, then we shall eliminate all the confusions between maybe some of the things that come in with paper one and paper two, and then we mix them up. But most importantly, let us understand the basics of the paper. So our paper is basically the novel, or maybe novels and short stories. I will call it the novel because, as you may know, we have only one short story. We read only one short story, and yet we read three novels. So, of course, now I'm saying this because I believe each one of us has read three novels and a short story. So since our novel is mainly about novels, and almost all the knowledge that we use is the same. The knowledge is the same, the approach is the same, the difference in the length of the text. So the short stories are really short. Then we have, we are going to look at them, and then we shall look at the difference later. So we know that our novel is written in prose. In prose, we mean in paragraphs, in long sentences, and chapters. Generally, that is what prose is about. In prose, we write using sentences, which sentences that turn into paragraphs, and which paragraphs turn into chapters, which chapters turn into a novel. Then also we know that novels are long and detailed in comparison to prose and poetry. Prose pieces are usually just very short. It can just be an extract from a book or just a small comprehension passage from a newspaper or wherever, but they're usually very short, one page. But with this particular paper, our readings are usually long, and the novels cannot be read in one sitting. Unlike short stories, you can't read the novels in one sitting. Then they focus on narration. There is a lot of narration. They narrate, they tell a story. By telling a story, it takes us back to the fact that they narrate, they bring the different events together, and then they make them a story. And then for you to read the novel, it requires silence. You need to read it individually, and you need to read it several times. If you are here with us today and you have read your novels once, you need to go back, and you might not be able to read all the novels now because of the time that we have. But for the novels that you are very sure you love and enjoy reading, for example, one of us enjoys reading the Moon of Faith, you can go back and read. At least you have a chance to read Ramon of Faith. You have a chance to read the short stories, even if it is a Walk in the Night, which is long. You have a chance to read it. And if you're doing the other short stories, which are maybe the Volta and in Corner B, those ones you can even read them 3 times in one night. And those events should be at least much. So if you have not read our if you have not reread our novels, please take time and at least reread one. Take time and at least reread one. Then we can now look at the sections. Our novels are divided into 4 sections. By now, you should know that we have 4 sections of the novel. We have section A, we have section B, and we have section C and section D. Now, these novels are different in one way or another. And that is what helps us to be able to understand them and what they are about. If you do not understand why particular novels are put in a particular section, then you might not be able to even understand the themes, to even understand the message of the author, to even understand what the author is trying to communicate, or to even relate to the events that happen in our society. So with section A, we have 3 novels, and I know each school might be doing different novels. We have Great Expectations. We have Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. We have Tales of the D'Urberville. This one, the girls love it so much. It's a tragic love story. But we also have Pride and Prejudice, which is also something the girls relate to so much. which is also filled with a lot of love, but most importantly, we need to understand why these authors wrote these novels at this time. And these novels are set in the 19th century and they are English books. They are set in the English society. Some of them are set in the Victorian era, some of them are set in the Elizabethan era, but most importantly, we know that they are in the 19th century. Now, in the 19th century in England, they had issues, and those issues cut across almost all these novels. If some of them might not appear in one novel, but we realize that most of our themes or most of our issues are issues that happened in the 19th century. So if you want to understand these novels, you can take time, research about 19th century England, what was happening in England at that time, what are some of the things that were going on? What were some of the affecting the people in England at that time? Then we have section B. Section B has novels like Game on the Cross by Ngugi wa Thiong'o. This is a popular author. We have read his other novels, Little Child. We have read his plays I Will Marry When I Want. We have read his history. We know that he wrote this novel when he was in prison. Then we have read our other novel, The Poor Christ of Bomba. We have also read Fathers and Sons. But I know the most popular novels are Death on the Cross and The Poor Christ of Bomba. These ones are post-colonial novels, and we're going to look at some of the issues in the post-colonial. We're going to look at some of the issues in the post-colonial period, post-colonial Africa to be specific. And then we have section C, which is also post-colonial short stories. The issues in these novels are mainly issues affecting Africa in the post-colonial era. The very, very first one is we have A Walk in the Night by Alex Laguma. We know that this one is set in South Africa, and we know some of the issues that affected the South Africa in from our South African history in senior 4. And then we also know we have also, some of us might be reading in corner B, but we also have The Voter by Chinua Achebe. This one is set in Nigeria, post-colonial Nigeria. The issues with voting, what do the voters go through? Is there corruption? Is there democracy? Is there bribery? And some of the issues that happen with whispering campaigns that happen in the middle of the night. Then we also have section D. This one, we call them the post-independence novels, the novels that came long after independence, when our societies were still struggling with the effects of the colonialists, but also struggling with the getting used to independence. There is modernity clashing with tradition, all those things that we see in our novel, The Moon also sets. Then we have in this section, we have novels like Footprints of the Outsider. We have Vanishing Herds by Ole Kulet. And we also have The Moon Also Sets by Osi Ogbu. So the most popular novel in this section is The Moon Also Sets, which many of us enjoy. And then I want us to now break down to some of the issues so that as we discuss or as we think about the themes, we know why certain things are the way they are in this novel, why certain people behave the way they do, why we consider, why we are going to do particular analysis. And also, when you go back today, take time. When you go back today, take time and read, take time and read about those particular periods of time in Africa, the post-colonial period, some of the issues that were being faced in our societies, the post-independence period, and also then read about the English society, 19th century England, some of the issues they were going through. So we can now go to our next slide. So these are some of the things you can look at them and think about some of the things that affected the environment or the societies at each time. In section A, we have looked at the novels, which we called novels set in the 19th century England, the English novels. They're called English novels, which we mainly look at under English literature. These novels are we have looked at Tales of the D'Urbervilles, Pride and Prejudice, and then Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. So some of the issues there were social class, and as you'll see in Pride and Prejudice, there's a lot of social class stratification. Status is very important. Marriage is based on class and social hierarchy. Marriage has certain conditions for women. Women were supposed to marry within a particular age. Women were supposed to marry within a particular class. Women were not allowed to marry just anywhere. But in some of the novels, like Pride and Prejudice, we are going to see that crossing classes and marrying from a higher class was not something easily accepted. Then we also have personal ambition versus social expectations for those that are reading Great Expectations. Then we have fate, morality, social expectations, and double standards. The fact that society expects women to be modest, and yet there are no conditions for the men who are maybe taking away or stealing the modesty of these girls, or there are no repercussions for a man that has no modesty. We can look at those things and know that those are some of the issues that happened in the 19th century England. And then we also have section B, where we have Devil on the Cross, The Poor Christ of Bomba, and Fathers and Sons. There we have exploitation and corruption. We have oppression and social injustices. We have identity and cultural conflict. We have imperialism. We have political disillusionment. Yeah, we also have religion and religious hypocrisy. Maybe I've not listed all of them, but we have some of them there. So you can take time and try to understand why certain things are the way they are in that novel. If you go back to history and try to read, you can relate. Maybe some of these novels, some of the things still happen in our society today, irrespective of the fact that we are no longer in that era. Then we go to our novels in section C, or our short stories. We have politics, we have corruption. That is mainly in our short story. The voter, there's a lot of politics and corruption. Then racial and social injustices, racial segregation, and brutality at the time, that is in A Walk in the Night. Then we have section D. We have daily struggles and survival, morality and ethics, social inequality. That is in our novel, The Moon Sets. Then we can go on to our next. So now that we know what is in every section, we know what novels we are reading, we know why certain novels are called what they are called, we know why certain issues are where they are in those novels. Let us now go to the exam, the gist, the main thing, the exam. What is the structure of the exam? Let me teacher Stephen, would you please share with me, help me share the Yeah, Stephen, are you there? Or let me get the paper and share it. But in the meantime, let us look at this let us read through what is expected in our exam. So in the meantime, look at the exam, our expectations of the exam. Please read through those. We have two main types of questions in our exam. We have the context question, we have the SC questions, and you can read through those and then you know what to expect. So as you can see from our screen, we have we are saying that, remember, we can only answer one question from each section. We have 4 sections. Each section will have 6 questions, apart from the section from which our essay will come. The section from which our context. The section from which our context will come will not have 6 questions. It will have only 3 questions. But the question from which our essays will come, each section will have 6 questions. So you can only answer one question from that section. From whichever book you have read, if you have read the monosociets, you will have 2 questions. If you have read the Dev on the Cross, you will have 2 questions. If you have read the Voter, you will have 2 questions. If you have read Pride and Prejudice or Taste of the D'Urbervilles, you will have 2 sections. So the context question, which we are going to look at, we shall have, first of all, it is compulsory. I don't know, I see so many people complaining about network, but I want to believe, I don't think there's any problem with my network. I don't think there's any problem with my network. I think it is your network, the people that are complaining. So our context question, one, we need to know that our context question is a compulsory question and it carries 34 marks. Then our section, our context question will be set from any section. I don't want you to lie to yourselves. Please do not spot. Do not spot. Do not spot. Do not start saying, I am so sure this year the context is coming from the monosociets, or for you to be there telling yourself, I am so sure they have not set any context from the short stories. It must come from the short stories. Or that it will come from because it has somewhere it came from last year. Or like, do not spot.
Kindly be patient. The teacher is coming back. Kindly be patient. The teacher is coming back. Uh, Isabel? Yes. The teacher is coming back. Kindly be patient. Isabel? 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 Teacher Ita? You can unmute.
Okay. Sorry about that. So we were talking about the exam. That's where we stopped, I believe. And I said our exam will have obviously 4 sections, but we shall have only one context question. And we have said that the context question is compulsory. We have said that it can come from any section, and we have agreed that we shall not spot. We have also said that it will be set from any, sorry, it will be set, the questions will be set on any of the different elements of the novel. Same thing for the essay. We have said that for the essay, you will choose 2 questions from any of the 3 sections. When I say 3 questions, it is because one section, since there are 4 sections, one section will have the context, and therefore we shall be left with 3 sections that will have essay questions, from which you will choose 2 questions. These questions will be from any of the 4 sections, and therefore we are expected to understand the different elements, since also the questions on the essay are set on any of the elements of the novel. Now, after knowing that our exam has 4 sections, and we have the context question and the essay question, we need to know that since the context question carries 34 marks, the essay questions carry 33 marks each. And with 33 marks each, it is also important for us to know that that is a total of 100 marks. So whatever mark you get from your essays or context will be added, and then give you a total of the 100 marks if you have attained the 100 marks. So we can move to the next slide. Now, elements of the novel. Look at those elements. I've divided them into 2 sections, and I'm going to tell you why. When you look at all those elements, that makes them, there are 11. There are 11 elements, but we are going to talk about why they are, why these are this side and the others are this. So I'm sure each one of us has been able to read through the 11 elements and ask yourself deep down in your heart, do you think you have understood all these elements in each of the novels that you have read? Because I know you have read 4 novels, but have you understood the plot? Have you understood the characters? Have you understood the themes? Can you explain the feelings aroused in you as a reader? Can you explain the mood and atmosphere? Can you explain the lessons? Then the other elements that we must understand the title. We must understand the setting. We must understand the narrative techniques in these novels. And also we must understand the conflict and the point of view. We are going to explain some of them, of course, not all of them. So the ones that are on the right, that is the plot, characters, themes, feelings, mood and atmosphere, and then lessons are usually our key elements. When I'll be talking about, every time I talk about elements and I tell you under relevance, we look at elements. Under this, we look at the elements. Under this, we must bring out the elements. Under this, we must bring out the elements. You know that I'm talking about these 6 elements. Whereas the 5 elements, the title, the setting, the narrative techniques, the conflict and point of view, those ones, you must understand them because they are also going to contribute to your understanding of the novel. If you have understood the title and why the title is what it is, then you will be able to explain some of the concepts in the novel. If you understand setting and know how setting influences certain aspects in the novel, then you will know how to approach certain issues. If you have understood the narrative techniques, then you will know how to approach certain questions in the novel, or you will know, you will be able to do an analysis on your own. Then if you understand the conflict, we are going to expound on them. So now let us go down and expound on some of these elements. So I hope you have written your list. So we have these. These are 4, and these are the ones I want us to dwell on so much. The title. The title is usually a theme. The title can be the central conflict. The title can be based on the main character, depending. So someone can give their novel a title depending on what the central conflict is. For example, our novel Pride and Prejudice, which is based on the central conflict, but also the central theme. The central theme is pride and prejudice, whereas also the conflict comes from pride and prejudice. Pride is what causes the biggest conflict. Then also, some novels are based on the main character. Those of us that are reading Oedipus, for example, in paper 2. So the title can be based on any of those. Then setting. We know that we have time setting, we have place, we have social environment, and then we know that setting shapes character, actions, and mood. It is because of character, it is because of it is because of setting that certain characters behave the way they do. Now, for example, how many of us, anyway, you might not be able to answer that now, but for those of us that are reading the moon also sets, I want you to look at the behavior of Mama Obi when she's in her house, and also the behavior of Mama Obi when she's at Pa Okolo's home. When Mama Obi is at Pa Okolo's home and she's invited, for example, when she was invited for a meeting with her brothers-in-law, she was humble, she was respectful, she was quiet, she was generally good and not all confident and everything. But when she was in her house and any of those brothers-in-laws of hers came, when Uncle Ben showed up, when Paokolo showed up, she was confident enough to tell them off. So setting plays a very big role in her behavior. So we need to know that setting plays an important role in the behavior of characters and their mood. Where they are sets the mood. But also when you look at Obi in the monosociates, setting, and actually setting is a very major aspect in the novel, the monosociates. Now, when you look at Obi's behavior, when she's back home in Isiaku, it is different from Obi's behavior when she joins the university. So the setting at the university influences Obi's behavior. When Obi goes to the university, she behaves differently. When she's at home, she also behaves differently. And you must have noticed if you read the novel, at some point when she returns home after the break, when she comes home from the university, when her mother is talking about weather, or when her mother brings the topic of abortion, we know that Obi's opinion about abortion at this point has changed. In the beginning, her opinion was, I cannot do an abortion, I am a religious girl, I have been raised well, I am all that. But now that she has gone to the university, she is a little bit open-minded. She tells her mother, what is wrong with an abortion? If that is the only thing you have to do. There's nothing wrong with me doing an abortion if I cannot bring this child, if I cannot take care of this child. So you see that the university has had an influence on her. So the setting plays an important role in shaping the behavior of characters and their actions, but most importantly, also shaping the mood, as we have seen in the behavior of Mama Obi, depending on where she is. When she's at her home, she's different. When she's away from home, she is different. Then we have conflict. Conflict is usually the struggle between opposing forces, and you need to know that every novel has a conflict. And when you look down here at plot, the first level of plot is exposition. If the first level of plot is exposition, that means that at the onset of our novel, this is what I'm looking at. At the onset of our novel, the conflict is introduced. So the conflict is introduced at the onset of the novel. At the beginning of the novel, they introduce the conflict. Now, when the conflict is introduced, the action rises. Things begin rising, the conflict becomes even bigger and bigger. Then here at the climax, the conflict becomes even more complex. For example, when we look at our novel, the monosociates, we have the conflict, which is Obi not going to the university. Then later we see action rising when she finally gets her admission. Her mother makes a party, then she goes to the university, then she meets Chike. Action is rising. The conflict was her not joining the university. Now she has joined the university. But now the issue is what is at the university. Then the climax is when now she gets into a relationship with with Chike, and even loses her virginity. We are yet to know. After we have reached the climax and Obi has lost her virginity to Chike, how does the action fall? Now the action falls slowly when eventually she gets pregnant and Chike starts playing funny games. Then he eventually gives her medicine to abort, and then she almost loses her life. And then finally, we get to the resolution. Now, the resolution is us finding a solution to the conflict. Resolution is when you have finally found the solution to the conflict. Because in the beginning, we were introduced to the problem. The problem was there. For each novel, there is a problem. Then at the end, there is a solution, which is the resolution. At the end, we see Obi finding out Chike's real behavior. In the novel Pride and Prejudice, the conflict is the enmity between Mr. Darcy and Elizabeth. It becomes worse and worse and worse and worse, with Mr. Wickham telling her stories, with her finding out about Mr. Wickham being denied his inheritance, and so much more. And then finally, the conflict between Mr. Darcy and Elizabeth is resolved when when Elizabeth finally accepts his proposal. So you need to know that there is always a conflict at the beginning, which is a struggle between two opposing forces, and it is central to plot development. Usually here. So we've understood plots. We have also looked at conflict. We have looked at the type. We have looked at setting. We know what narrative techniques are. Can someone share with us? Okay. Anyone can type and tell us what narrative techniques are. Narrative techniques, please type. Type. Magali, SS. Please share with us. What are narrative techniques?
Narrative techniques.
Someone from Magali SS, the hand is up.
Yes, narrative techniques are the tools that are employed in a way of writing a story. It is a tool that we can use to state, actually to tell what happened, or kind of describing a situation that happened one time or in a community. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Magali SS. He says these are tools or methods used by the writer to deliver their message. We need to understand that the author delivers their message, but they must use certain message, some techniques. They must use certain tools to continue to interest the reader and maintain their interest in that. So if some of the tools used to sustain the reader's interest are what we call narrative techniques, and we have very many, but the most common ones in our novel, we have dialogue, we have description, we have symbolism, we have imagery, we have irony, we have sarcasm, we have so many. We have the omniscient narrator. These are just tools used by the author to sustain the reader's interest. These things make the novel beautiful. For example, if you are asked to discuss how the author sustains the reader's interest, you are being asked to discuss the narrative techniques used in the novel. Then, let's go to our next slide. The context. A context question. We know what a context question is. This is one of the trickiest areas in our exam, the context question. And I want us to pay very close attention. When we are given a context question, first of all, you must read the passage that has been picked out from your novel. After you have read the passage, you must read the questions and understand them very carefully. But this context question is what helps us to test the learners and find out, have you read the novel from the beginning to the end? Do you know the plot? Do you know where each section or each part of the novel is actually taking place? That if you are given a context question and they pick out a particular passage from whichever area of the novel, will you be able to tell us what happens before and what happens after? So some of the areas that are mainly asked in the context, they always ask about plot, they always ask about characters, they always ask about themes, techniques. But in this particular section, unlike in our essays where we expect to have long answers to explain and do everything, in the context question, our answers are supposed to be short and precise. Very short and precise. Then evidence must be picked from the passage. Don't pick evidence from the rest of the novel. Okay, there is a part where we want to know if you know what happens before or after, but in certain questions, I'm going to show you some examples, you must answer and give evidence from the novel, especially questions on describing character, on explaining themes, on picking out narrative techniques. You must give your evidence from the passage, not from the novel, but from the extract that has been given to you. That is where you pick your explanation from or your evidence. So this context question is to see, can you be able to identify the nitty-gritties? Can you be able to identify character traits from the little that has been given to you? Are you a student that has understood how to extract things? Are you a student that has understood techniques that you can be able to pick out narrative techniques from something as small as one page that has been extracted from the wider novel? Then also this particular section also tests, are you able to relate the events of the passage, what happens in the rest of the novel? Are you able to relate what happens in this particular extract to what happens before and after in the novel? Are you able to also share with us or to show that you have actually read the book and you know where each of these sections is, each of these things happen? That is what we want to see. So that is our context question. Now, these are some of the questions that are usually asked. You may read through. We said earlier, let me take you back a little. We said questions are on plot, characters, themes, techniques, and the answers must be short and precise. So now on the next page, the page that I'm going to open, those questions are questions on plot, mainly plot. That is usually our question A of the extract. When you read through them, they are almost asking for the same thing, placing the extract in context. Whereas some of them might be specific. For example, our first question says, place the extract in context. What do you think this question is asking for? If they ask you to place the extract in context, what are they asking you to do? Put up your hand and tell us. If they tell you to place the extract in context, what are they asking you to do? Yes, Kabali. Someone from Kabale, please answer the question. Kabale Sanjay, secondary school. Kabale Sanjay, you have been unmuted. What is that question asking us to do?
The
When they say
question,
place the extract in context.
the question is asking us to place before and after the context.
The question is asking us to give an answer of what happens before and after the context.
Yeah.
What happens before and what happens after the context. Now here, we do not answer what happens in the extract. We are focusing on what happens before and what happens after. Then we have a question that says what happens after the extract. That one is very obvious. What happens before the extract? Then we have two words here. We have precedes and proceeds. Someone tell us, what does precedes mean? What does proceeds mean? Kabale, you unmute so you can tell us. Someone from Magali is answering. Magali, please answer.
When they say pre, we give events before, and pro is after.
Thank you very much. So when they ask, precedes is what happens before, and proceeds is what happens after. Then our next question says, describe the events leading to the extract. Someone tell us, what do they want? Describe the events leading to the extract. When they ask you to talk about the events leading to the extract, what do they want? Kabale, your hand is still up. Do you want to answer? You have been unmuted.
Yeah, they're asking just to place only the events that take place before the extract.
Thank you very much. So you are only answering the events that take place before the extract. Now, those are the questions that you can expect, especially from part A. But on the right, I want you to read those points on the right. Those are the guidelines on how you should answer. You are expected to use the active voice. I've given you an example of the active and the passive voice. The first sentence that says, Darcy tells Elizabeth, that is active voice. The second sentence that says, Elizabeth is told by Darcy, that is the passive voice. And that one is not what we want. We don't want you to say, Elizabeth is told by Darcy. We want you to use, I will underline what we expect. So this is wrong. We don't expect you to answer like this. This is what we want. Darcy tells Elizabeth. That is the active voice. In the active voice, a sentence starts with the doer, who is Darcy, and ends with the receiver of the action, who is Elizabeth. In the passive voice, the sentence ends with the doer. We don't want you to end with the person who does. We want you to start with the person who does. And we have said that we expect you to use the present tense. The present tense, we know that literature is alive. Literature is not dead. Literature is not in the past. Literature is living. Literature is in the present, and therefore it must be answered in the present simple tense. So we expect you to say, Darcy tells. Don't use sentences like Darcy told. Mama Obi went. Obi cried. Obi did this. No, don't use the past tense. We want you to use the present tense and say, Darcy tells Elizabeth. Mama Obi tells Obi. Mama Obi goes to church. Obi goes to the university. Obi, instead of saying Obi is helped by Chike, we expect you to say Chike helps Obi to carry things to the dormitory, to her hall of residence. We want you to say Chike writes a poem to Obi. We don't want you to say Obi receives a poem. No. Start with Chike writes a poem to Obi. Tell us that Okoro, Chris, and Obi sit in Chike's room. We want you to say maybe Obi is, for example, when you say Obi's drink is Obi's drink is drugged by Chike. Don't say Obi's drink is drugged. Tell us that Chike drugs Obi's drink. That is the active voice, and that is present tense. Don't say that Chike drugged and you're using past. Use the present tense and say Chike drugs. Now, do not narrate. students have a habit of narrating and wanting to tell the story and what happens within the story and what happens deep and trying to explain why things are the way they are. For example, you will say, since Obi was not watching, Chike maybe Chike distracted her and then added more alcohol in her soda. No, go straight to the point and say, Chike adds alcohol in Obi's soda. Full stop. Don't start saying she was not seeing, she had looked away, she was dancing. That is not the point. The point is he drugged the drink. Full stop. Don't go into the details of what she was doing when the drink was drugged. Then we can now go to the next slide. But in case you have any questions, feel free to ask so that we don't leave you behind. Yes, Kamali, your hand is up. Please ask. Teacher Stephen, please unmute Kamali.
Discuss about the theme of nature in the novel Taste of the Duba vibe. How do I approach that question?
That is an essay question. We are still looking at the context questions. Anyone that has a question on context? Yes, St. Joseph's Centenary. Alternatively, you can type your questions in the chat. I will read them and I'll attempt to those. Let's end those conversations in the chat and let's ask questions. Someone named student, I'll talk about significance. At the end, we have it as one of the things we are going to talk about. Yes, I'm going to answer that question, how relevant the extract is to the rest of the novel. So it looks like we don't necessarily have questions about this, so let's go to the next. So in the essay question, we have also, sorry, in the context question, we also have these questions. Describe the character of Obi. Now I'm going to share something that will lead us to the question that student was asking. I don't know why she's named student, but that will lead us to the question that you have been asking about significance. But let me start with, let me share something with you that is going to help us understand how these questions are answered. Now, I need you to look at this, what is written here, what this student writes. That first answer, now, I want you to know that each of these answers is answering a different question, and I want you to pay very close attention because I'm just going to give the question and then we shall look at how this child has answered. The first point, I am going to label it. The first point, I am going to label it. I'm going to label it 1. This one, point 1. Point 1, let me have someone read for us. The young girl labeled student, she's seated, she seems to be seated alone. Please read for us. Read for us, you have been unmuted.
The theme of corruption portrayed in the passage when Ruth accepts the bribes from Maduka's campaign manager, showing how elections are influenced by bribery. This shows that corruption weakens democracy and leads to betrayal.
Thank you very much. So this question is answering the question. Explain the themes portrayed in the extract. I hope you're writing. This question is answering the question. Explain the themes portrayed in the extract. Explain the theme.
Yes.
Explain the themes portrayed in the extract. You would answer using such a sentence. 1, you are going to start by identifying the theme, which is here, corruption. The theme of corruption is portrayed in the passage. Then you must give us evidence. We need to see evidence. Here is the evidence. Ruth accepts the bribes from Maduka's campaign manager. Then, since we are answering a question on theme, we need to be specific about what the author is trying to communicate about corruption. What the author is trying to communicate about corruption is that corruption weakens democracy. What the author is trying to communicate about corruption is that, corruption leads to betrayal. What the author is trying to communicate about corruption is that elections are influenced by bribery. So do not just say that the theme of corruption is portrayed in the passage when Ruth accepts the bribe from Maduka's campaigning manager. Go ahead and give us a little more explanation about what the author is trying to communicate about corruption, but be precise and straight to the point. And as you can see, this student has a very short answer because it is a context question. In context questions, we must go straight to the point. We are looking at the question is saying, explain the themes portrayed in the extract. This is just one answer. Of course, you are going to explore other themes explained in the explored in the extract. Different themes for each theme should have its own paragraph. So if they say explain the themes portrayed in the extract, we expect you to have corruption, maybe immorality, maybe another theme can be exploitation, another theme can be superstition, another theme can be witchcraft, manipulation. But every time you come up with a new theme, have the answer as short as that. If the question says that it is giving you 8 marks, that means they want 4 answers. 4 answers, which means you're going to get a mark for identifying the theme and another mark for explaining its evidence in the passage. Those are 2 marks. Then you identify another theme, other 2 marks until you have 4. If you have 4 themes, then the total comes up to 8. So remember that at the end of the day, there is going to be a mark for identifying the theme and another mark for explaining the theme with evidence from the extract. Then we have the next paragraph. We have the next paragraph. The next paragraph is, irony is used when Ruth, who is supposed to be loyal to Marcus, accepts money from Maduka, which exposes Rufus' character as a hypocrite. Now, listen and listen very well. This is a question. We said questions. This is now a different question. We are going to number it 2. It is answering a different question. Now, write this question down. If the question is, explain the narrative techniques used in this extract. Explain the narrative techniques used in this extract. Explain the narrative techniques used in this extract. That is our question. And it doesn't matter. Let's imagine this question is saying that it is out of 6 marks. If it is out of 6 marks, that means it is requiring us to have 3 points. And this is one of our points. I'll give only 1 point for each. This is one of our points. You can see it is short and precise. Remember, I told you to remember the 6 elements of the novel. The 6 elements, which are plot, which are character, which are theme, which are feelings, lessons, mood, and atmosphere. And now we are going to bring them up here in this answer. Irony is one of the techniques. Remember, our question is saying, explain the techniques used in this extract. Irony is one of the techniques that we have identified. Irony being a narrative technique, it must be explained with effectiveness. We must give effectiveness. Every time we give narrative techniques, we must give effectiveness. So let me write here, say, narrative techniques must have, okay? So when we are answering questions on narrative techniques, this is our narrative technique, which is irony. And we have identified it here. And then its effectiveness is, we have chosen character. Remember, for narrative techniques, let me use this area here. We have plot, we have theme, we have plot, we have theme, we have character, have feelings, have lessons, so when you see this list here, in the novel, when we are answering questions in paper 3, the effectiveness, unlike paper 1, where the effectiveness can be enhancing our understanding, allowing us to maybe be in touch with the feelings of the narrator, all those things. In paper 3, the only effectiveness that is acceptable is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Our narrative technique must be effective in developing one of these. And as you can see, here for irony, this student has chosen to say, irony is used when Ruth is supposed to be loyal to Marcus. Sorry, when Ruth, who is supposed to be loyal to Marcus, accepts a bribe from Maduka, which exposes Rufus' character as a hypocrite. So this child has identified the narrative technique, which is irony, and has identified an effectiveness, which is character. So you must bring out the effectiveness. Chisoko, hi, your hand is up. You have a question? Chisoko, hi, your hand is up. You have a question? Do not number your points. I don't expect you to number your points. Just paragraph them as you can see. You're just using indented paragraphs. But then what I want you to focus on is for you to know that we all know that with narrative techniques, when you're explaining narrative techniques, you must give the effectiveness. And for effectiveness, each narrative technique must bring out one of these, not all of them, just one of them in a context question. Choose only one. So this child has chosen hypocrite, which is a character. So this child is going to get a mark for identifying the narrative technique and getting its effectiveness, which is that it brings out or it exposes Rufus' character as a hypocrite. Now, your answer will only be correct if you have identified a narrative technique and also explained with evidence from that the passage. The evidence here is that Ruth, who is supposed to be loyal to Marcus, accepts money from Maduka. If you just say that there is use of irony, which exposes Rufus' character as a hypocrite, your answer will be wrong. Why? Because you have not showed us the evidence of the irony. Here you have shown, this child has shown the evidence of the irony, which is that Ruth, who is supposed to be loyal, accepts a bribe from Maduka, Maduka's campaigning manager. Then we have point number 3. I'll go to point number 3, and I will expect you to write the question. Let me first remove all these writings so that they do not distract us. Now, I want you to also know, before I leave point number 2 of narrative techniques, guys, listen and remember this, that if you have identified irony as your narrative technique first, and then you have told us that it brings out Rufus' character as a hypocrite. When you identify another narrative technique, for example, and you say dialogue, if your second narrative technique is dialogue and you say dialogue, there is use of dialogue between Ruth and Maduka's campaigning manager, where Ruth accepts the bribe, which leads to the development of now your second point. If it is irony will not bring out character. Why? You have already used character here. In your second point, you choose something else. It should be developing either theme or plot or lessons or mood. You can't have all your narrative techniques bringing out character. No. If one brings out character, another narrative technique can bring out theme, another narrative technique can develop plot, another narrative technique can develop feelings. But don't say dialogue brings out character. Irony brings out character. The omniscient narrator brings out character. This brings out character. No. If irony has developed character, dialogue can develop theme, symbolism can develop feelings, then maybe the omniscient narrator can bring out a lesson, but not character. That is wrong. So let me erase these, then we can look at our next point. Now, since time is not on our side, I want us to go through this very fast, and that is why you should be very attentive. So now look at our next point, which I will number. I will give number 3. And then write down this question. Number 3 is answering the question. Describe the character of Ruth as portrayed in the short story. Describe the character of Ruth as portrayed in the, describe the character of Ruth as portrayed in the extract. Describe the character of Ruth as portrayed in the extract. Now, this is our answer. Our answer is Ruth is portrayed as greedy. That is the first tick, which is shown when it is said that he could not let his eyes off the red notes. This is something that was in the extract, and that is why we are considering it as our evidence of Rufus's greed. Now, I'm not saying that you give only one answer. I said I will just give one answer for this question because we can't give all the answers that are needed because this is not even the exam. So if let's say this question is out of 6, then we expect you to identify 3 character traits of Ruth, and therefore you will have 3 different answers, and this is your first answer. This one is your first answer. You will have another answer saying maybe Ruth is portrayed as corrupt because he accepts a bribe in order to vote for Maduka. According to the passage, he says that he has accepted the bribe. Then you get another answer and say, Ruth is portrayed as a coward. You get it? So let us remember that the number of marks that are awarded is what decides for us how many points to give. These are just samples on how to answer. Then, this is a tricky question. And I want us to write it down. Are you seeing this question here? In red, I'm going to underline it. It is here. Please write it down. It says, how have the themes been portrayed in the passage? How have the themes been portrayed in the passage? Write it down and then also look at this answer. Answer, I'll label it number 5. This one was number 4. I'll label this one. Was this one number 4? It was number 3. Let me label this number 4. So when you look at that question and you look at the answer, can someone tell us why the answer is like that? The answer seems to have very many things. The answer has a technique. The answer has evidence of the technique. Then it goes on to bring out this. So we have, this is evidence. I'll label it E. And then this is also evidence. It looks like it has 2 points in one. Student, tell us, why does this answer seem to have so many things within? Please unmute, student. Student, unmute yourself. Just even, can she unmute herself? Okay. Since she can't unmute herself, I'll give you the answer. This question seems to have so much because when they ask you how, they want techniques. And one of the techniques has been given, which is this one. So how have the themes been portrayed? So you will tell us that through the dialogue between Ruth and Maduka. Now, make sure that when you mention dialogue, you tell us which dialogue. Don't just say dialogue. Which dialogue and what were they talking about? We need you to be specific. Like this child has said, through the dialogue between Ruth and Maduka's campaigning manager, when Ruth says that it would not be heard outside the room, and he is told that they are not after gossip, the theme of hypocrisy is portrayed. And don't stop at hypocrisy. Go ahead and explain hypocrisy because they have been specific and said how you have answered the how by giving the dialogue. And then you have answered the theme by mentioning the theme. And after you have mentioned the theme, you go ahead and explain. So you mention the how, which is this one. You explain it here by giving evidence. Then you mention the theme. You go ahead and explain it, whereby the explanation is here. Now I'm going to the question that most of you want to go to, which is the most important for you. That question usually has 10 marks, but it has different questions. And sometimes we might not read the question because we are excited. We are used to the one that we want. The question, let me first go back to our slides. Let's go back to our slides.
Mzee,
This is the question that most of you are asking. How do we answer that question? That is what most of you want. Explain the significance of the extract to the development of the rest of the novel. Explain the significance of the extract to the development of plot. Explain the significance of the extract to the development of character and themes in the novel. Now, usually, this is the question. This is the main question that is usually asked. This one, but then sometimes the question can come like this. Other times the question can come like this. The most important thing is for you to know that when it is asked like this, you only focus on plot. When it is asked like this, you focus on character and themes. When it is asked like this, we need to know that a novel develops. Now let's go to let's point at development. A novel develops in terms of develops in terms of plot. A novel develops in terms of themes. A novel develops in terms of character. A novel develops in terms of lessons. A novel develops in terms of feelings. A novel develops in terms of mood and atmosphere. This question usually has 10 marks. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. A novel develops like that. A novel develops in terms of plot, in terms of themes, in terms of character, in terms of lessons, in terms of feelings, and in terms of mood. So if our question requires us to, has 10 marks, then we expect you to have 5. We expect you to have your answer looking at 5 of these. You can choose any 5 from these 6. But this is how now we answer. Let's now go to a sample. Share a sample. First, look at that answer. Only focus on this answer. This one. If you look at that answer, it has, I'm going to underline the things that must appear in your answer. Now here, remember I gave you a list of 6 things that we must answer. Now we are answering, our first answer is on character. I'm going to underline the important things here. That is 1. And as you can see, let me circle this as well. Then, so the novel is developing. It has developed in terms of character. And in terms of character, in the extract, remember they want you to show significance. In the extract, Ruth is greedy. You give evidence from the extract and say, this is seen when he accepts bribes from the opposition, yet he already has enough coming from Marcus. Then, since we are looking at how how it influences development to the rest of the novel, we are going to now talk about what happens later in the novel, and we shall say later in the short story, or if it is a novel, we shall say later in the novel, Ruth is portrayed as greedy. When he fails to do what is right by returning the money to the opposition, he's greedy because he keeps the money. This is what happens later in the short story. And remember, the novel develops going forward. It doesn't develop going backwards. So what happens outside the novel, we don't expect you to pick something that goes backwards. We expect you to focus on what happens ahead. So in terms of character, you will pick how greedy Ruth is in the extract and how greedy he is later in the novel. But you must mention these things in terms of character, comma, in the extract. Ruth is portrayed as greedy when he does this, this, and this. Later in the short story, he is also portrayed as greedy when he does this, this, and that. I hope you get it. Let me show you a wider, let's use a wider perspective. Now, I want you to look at these. You're going to look at her answers. We are going to read through all these, unfortunately. So now I'm going to go straight to see. This is Teacher Stephen shared with you the paper, the question. There is one paper there. There's a paper that he shared, and I want you to look at it. You can open it your side, and you look at the context question that I am looking at. Part D. Here is part D. Read through those answers.
In terms of plot.
Read. It's okay. You read loud. The person that was reading.
In terms of plot, in the passage, Dancy refuses to dance with Elizabeth due to his pride, and she overhears him call her tolerable. Later in the novel, Elizabeth mentions she would easily forgive Dancy's pride if he had not mortified hers, and therefore she develops prejudice towards him.
So when you look at this answer, thank you very much, young lady. When you look at this answer, this person, remember I said when we are answering the question on significance of the extract to the novel, we focus on plot, character, themes, the 6 elements that I have been writing for you over and over. So our first answer, without showing how the novel develops in terms of plot. And there we are. Then we have mentioned what Darcy does in the extract and what it leads to later on in the novel. Then we come to in terms of theme, because we say the novel develops in terms of plot, theme, character. Then we come to in terms of theme. Can someone read for us that answer? The young lady, you're still unmuted. You can read for us.
The second answer.
Yes, this one in terms of thematic concern.
In terms of thematic concern in the passage, the theme of pride is highlighted through Mr. Darcy, whose pride influences him to undermine Elizabeth. Later in the novel, the theme of pride is developed when Darcy proposes to Elizabeth against his better judgment, and Elizabeth rejects him, which hurts her pride.
So in terms of theme, still, you can see that we are using the same thing, and we are saying we have to mention that now we are going to theme. In terms of theme, then we must mention that now we are talking about what is happening in the passage. Then we explain what happens in the passage in terms of theme. Then we come and mention later in the novel what happens in how is the theme of pride brought out later on in the novel. So we must talk about, let me use text. We must mention and say, in terms of theme, then we go ahead and say, in the passage. So you talk about the theme and how it is evidenced in the passage, and then how that theme is brought out later in the novel. These are the key things that are very important that are going to give you marks in that particular part. These 3 things, in terms of theme, comma, in the passage, the theme of pride is brought out. You can choose whichever theme that you are able to identify in the passage. In terms of theme, in the passage, the theme of pride is portrayed when this and this happens. Later on in the novel, the same theme, if you have identified pride again, in the passage, you must also talk about pride and how it is shown later in the novel. Later in the novel, the theme of pride is brought out when this and this happens. Now, if you do not mention that in the passage and later in the passage, in the passage and later in the novel, you will not get the marks. We need to see that now you're talking about what happens in the passage, and then after you cross to what happens later in the novel. We must see both. Let me have someone read for us the next answer. You can see that this person has given us answers on the different aspects. We started with plot. Now she has talked about theme. So far now she has gotten her 4 marks out of 10. She's now looking for the other 6, and this we're going to see how she's going to get them. Let's move. In terms of character, as you can see, still, please read for us the young lady that has been reading.
In terms of character, in the passage, Mr. Darcy is proud when he proposes that Bingley go back to his dancing, as it is a waste of time to force him to dance with ladies that he doesn't know. Later in the novel, Mr. Darcy is proud when he proposes to Elizabeth in a very proud way, expecting acceptance from her, but she rejects him, which hurts his pride.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
So this person has now crossed to character. She has finished plot. She has finished theme. She has now moved to character. She has still mentioned in terms of character. She has said in the passage, and then when she finishes explaining and giving evidence, she goes to later in the novel. She gets her 2 marks. Now she has 6. Then she goes to the next aspect, which is mood. Someone read.
In terms of mood in the passage, the mood is that of indifference when Bingley tries to get Darcy to dance. Later in the novel, the mood is filled with indifference when Caroline Bingley tries to get Darcy's attention by appreciating his handwriting while he writes to his sister.
Now, her answer is wrong because we don't have a mood of indifference. Indifference is not a mood. So we go on to the next answer, which is that one of feelings. But she's bright and clever. She knows that some of her answers might be wrong. So instead of focusing on only 5 elements to get 10 marks, she writes about all 6 elements. Then the examiner chooses the 5 that are correct and takes those. So one of her answers is wrong, but then instead of focusing on only the ones that are there, she writes about all of them. She writes about plot, character, themes, mood, and atmosphere, which she feels. She goes ahead to write about feelings and lessons so that she does not lose marks. So here, in terms of feelings, someone read.
In terms of feelings in the passage, I am disappointed by Darcy's proud behavior towards Elizabeth when he calls her tolerable. Later in the novel, I am more disappointed by the way Darcy proposes to Elizabeth in such an inconsiderate way.
So you can see that she is now talking about feelings. And remember, when we are talking about feelings, we want the feelings of the reader. You, the reader, what do you feel? So she says she is disappointed. And then also later in the novel, she tells us what disappoints her later in the novel. Then she goes to lessons. Someone tell us about lessons. Someone read the answer on lessons. The girl
In
that
terms
has
of
been reading for us, yes.
in terms of lessons in the passage, the lesson of pride allows better judgment in the developed.
Clouds. Pride clouds.
In terms of lessons in the passage, the lesson of pride clouds better judgment is developed through Darcy's initial judgment of Elizabeth. Later in the novel, the lesson of pride clouds better judgment when Elizabeth judges Wickham due to his initial change.
So, due to his initial charm. So, the lesson is pride clouds better judgment. It is shown how it is brought out in the extract and also how it is brought out later in the novel. So, I want to believe that those of you that were asking how we answer that question, the question that says, how do we, the question that says, discuss the effectiveness of the novel to the rest of, describe the effectiveness of the passage to the rest of the novel. Now, some people are asking me to use the rest of the novels, but we cannot use all novels. The most important thing is for you to see how to phrase the answers. That's the most important thing.
Can we get a PDF of this girl's paper?
Yes,
so that
Teacher Stephen will send it to you.
Okay, thank you.
Now, these are essays which we have not yet gone into, but then I want you to read through her answer on what happens before and after the extract. So this one, she's answering before, and I want you to read through her answer and see how short and precise it is. Let me have a reader.
Before the passage, Mr. Bingley comes.
Before you continue, first stop. You see where the ticks are? They put the ticks at the action verb. So you must know that you must use action verbs. Continue.
Okay. Before the passage, Mr. Bingley comes to Netherfield. Mrs. Bennet is excited by the news of a new single gentleman. The news excites most of the people in the society. Mrs. Bennet pushes Mr. Bennet to go and visit Mr. Bingley before anyone else does. Mr. Bennet tells Mrs. Bennet that he will introduce Elizabeth first. Mr. Bennet visits Mr. Bingley in this new estate. Mr. Bingley returns the visit. His visit excites the Bennet sisters. Mr. Bingley goes back to London for business. Rumour spreads that he is to come back with a party of 12 people. He comes back to Netherfield with Mr. Darcy, his two sisters, and Mr. Hurst. The Bennets get ready for the Meryton ball. The ball takes place leading to the passage.
So this question was asking for what happens before the passage. It doesn't ask for what happens after the passage. So this is our answer on the significance to the development of the rest of the novel. Now, let us first go back to our slides. So we have looked at the context question. Now the essay. We might not be able to exhaust everything, But God willing, I can, if we arrange another time, I can get you to the depth of the other questions on the extract, but those are the most common questions, and maybe bring you some other samples using other different novels. But now you know the basics of how to answer questions on the extract. Now we have an essay. Qualities of an A script. A child who is going to get an A. How should you produce, how should you present your essays? All those things must appear in your essay. You must, first of all, interpret the question appropriately. Students sometimes are given a question and then they answer it wrongly. You must have an excellent introduction. You must use excellent language. You must argue your point. You must show that you're a literature student by using literary language. You must show excellent knowledge of the text. And how do we show excellent knowledge of the text? By giving examples that cut across the text, by quoting and paraphrasing. Then also for you to have an A script, you must have chronological flow of ideas in a paragraph. You must use proper analysis of ideas, and you must be original and creative, and you must have an excellent conclusion. All those things must be in your essay. If your essay doesn't meet these standards, you might not get the A. So an A starts from being able to attain 28 marks and above. That is an A script. 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33. Then B, no, actually it is an A script starts from 30. That is an A plus. That is the excellent one. Then we have a B, that is 25, 26, 27. That is a B. 25, 26, 27. That is where you are not excellent, but very good. Very good introduction, very good language, very good knowledge of text, very good examples. Then the C is when you are just good. That is 21, 22, 23, 24. That is just good. That is a C. So then fair, then poor, then very poor. But most importantly, let's focus on excellence. We are looking for excellence. When you are giving an analysis in your essay, we want you to show us that you understand the laws in the society where the novel is set. We want you to show us that you understand what religion says about certain things. We want you to show us that you understand the values in our society. We want you to show us that you know what the author was trying to communicate. And we also want you to show us that you understand how relevant these things are to the rest of our society in terms of the events, in terms of characters, and in terms of themes. So our essay must show this. So
Madam,
yes, please.
Can we base on, while on the essay writing, can we base on the footprints of the outsider novel?
Footprints of the outsider. Well, we can, but you know that Footprints of the Outsider is not a popular novel. There might be very few people that are doing it. How many of us are doing Footprints of the Outsider? You put up your hand. If you're doing Footprints of the Outsider. We have only 2 people doing Footprints of the Outsider. And the heart, so far 3. Then those of us doing the monosociates. Put up your hand if you're doing the monosociates. So as you can see, majority of us are doing the monosociates. However, we shall have a sample on, because the sample paper that I organized has a question on the monosources and it doesn't have a question on the footprints of the outsider. So it doesn't have a sample essay. But how many of us are doing Dev on the Cross? If you're doing Dev on the Cross, okay. Now I have two sample essays. I have one essay that is showing us how to answer a question on narrative techniques. But one thing I need you to remember is that for you to get good marks in paper 3 on the essay, you must write at least, the shortest essay should be 5 pages. 5 pages. Anything below 5 pages is not going to get us marks. So you must have at least 5 pages. So you must write, and write. So let me share with you some of those samples because our time is up, but I want you to read through these essays and see. I'll start with the question she was answering was a question that was saying, the question that she was answering, let me read for you the question. The question was, discuss the significance of female characters in the novel The Moon Also Sets. Significance of female characters in the novel The Moon Also Sets. That is her introduction. Read the introduction. Let me have someone read for us. Hey. Wait a minute. Someone read the introduction.
The novel.
The novel.
The novel The Moon Also Sets presents a various number of female characters. For example, Mama Obi, Mama Ijoma, Fami, and Ada. Although all of them contribute to the novel, the most effectively used are Mama Obi, a widow in a post-colonial society, and a conservative village of Siakupa, and her daughter Obi, the protagonist of the novel. The significance the protagonist of the novel. The significance of female characters in the novel is identified through development of plot, themes, character, mood, feelings, and lessons. The female characters play a very pivotal role in the novel The Moon Also Sets, as discussed below.
So her introduction, in her introduction, first of all, she explains, she tells us which female character she's going to focus on. She goes on to tell us the one that she's going to mainly focus on. But most importantly, she goes on to tell us what angle she's going to take. She's going to take an angle of explaining how they contribute to the development of the novel in terms of how do these female characters contribute to the development of plot? How do these female characters contribute to the development of themes? How do these female characters contribute to the development of other characters? How do these female characters contribute to the development of feelings? And how do these female characters contribute to the development of lessons? So you can see that she has, her paragraphs are wide enough. They explain very well. That is one paragraph. Her paragraph starts from here. And I want someone to read for us and get a picture of what a good paragraph looks like. Let me have another reader, a different reader. Just Stephen, please help us unmute any of those people putting up their hands. I can see Edika Mercy. Let's have Edika Mercy read for us. Or we can have Kauma Yusuf, any that you will choose. Or St. Teresa Girls in Senyi, in Kasese. She can read for us this paragraph, then we can call it a day. And then you can share with them these essays, plus the other one that I shared with you. Anyone else that is able to unmute themselves so that they can read? If you have not been locked out by Teacher Stephen. Or the girl that was reading for us can continue reading.
Firstly, the female character of Mama Obi plays a pivotal character in the development of themes such as woman emancipation. Mama Obi is a very empowering female character in the novel. She is able to raise her children alone after Papa, even with the challenges from her she educates all of her children as Obi is able to continue her education when she is accepted into the University of Embakakas.
Basing on the laws.
Basing on the laws of the land in Isiakupu. Madam, we won't mind about the way I pronounce since I don't offer this book.
It's okay.
Are against the empowerment of women since men are supposed to be the dominant figures. Therefore, many of the women in the village are marginalized by the men such as Pa Okolo. It should also be noted that women whose husbands are dead or widows in Siakupu are more exposed to the defect of marginalization. This therefore fills me with admiration due to Mama Obi's strong character. The fact that she is able to succeed in such a male-dominated society is inspiring and really admirable. The author's intention is to show the readers that what a man can do, a woman can do better, vividly portrayed through Mama Obi's empowering character in the novel.
Thank you very much. So you can tell that this child does not necessarily narrate. She shares with us her opinion, her personal opinion, what she feels, what she thinks. But her thinking is based on the laws of society. Her thinking is based on what religion says. Her thinking is based on moral values. Her thinking is based on things that we uphold as a society. So, for example, when you look at this sentence where she said, it should also be noted that women whose husbands are dead or widows in Isiakpu are more exposed to the defect of marginalization. This therefore makes me, this therefore fills me with admiration. This spelling of feels is wrong. This therefore fills me with admiration. She's telling us her feelings. The fact that she's able to succeed in such a male-dominated society is inspiring and really admirable. The author's intention is to show the readers that what a man can do, a woman can do better, vividly portrayed through Mama Obi's empowering character. So some of these things are just for you to think about outside the box. Ask yourself, what is it that Mama Obi does that relates a lot to what is happening in our society? You should be able to compare. You should be able to tell us your opinion. You should be able to tell us what you think. We should be able to hear your voice, you as an individual. Let's read one more point. You can see this child is able to quote at the end of this paragraph. You can read for us, or maybe let me read this second paragraph. Similarly, Mama Obi also contributes to the theme of religion. In the novel, she is a very respectful Catholic and ensures to influence and direct her children in the same path of being God-fearing. For example, stressing the importance of Sunday as a day to attend church, dress respectfully, and eat properly in the celebration of the Holy Sabbath. She's not narrating, she's just giving clear examples. She's showing that she has read the text and has understood it. She goes ahead to say she's also a member of the Catholic Women's Society under Isiakpu. It is through the guidance of the Lord that she is able to overcome the circumstances of challenge. For example, banning of her shop in the Ike market. Therefore, she is able to succeed due to her strong belief in God. Since Christianity stresses the role of God in everyone's life, that she believes always get what they ask for through a verse in the Bible that says, ask and you shall be given. She always says this. She says it somewhere in the novel. This is therefore verified through Mama Obi's ability to overcome challenges. So when you read through her essay, you can tell that this child has read the novel. She's able to quote. She has understood the parameters of analysis. So after analyzing how the female characters like Mama Obi develop themes, she goes ahead to tell us how Mama Ijoma, another character, brings out themes also as well. Then she will go ahead and tell us how it affects the mood. But here she's caught up with time. You can see her paragraph is short. So even if you're caught up with time, and that is why you should balance your time very well, she spends a lot of time on themes and forgets other things. And yet for you to get the marks on this question, you must hint on all the elements, plot, theme, character, and everything. So she's not able to explain this paragraph very well. As you can see, she just gets the point, puts it there, but she doesn't expound on it, which is a very bad thing because at the end of the day, you lose marks, yet you have created a good impression at the beginning. Then we have, we can continue. You can see her paragraphs later start becoming short because she is in a hurry. So that is why it is very important that you balance your time. But you can see that the quotations are what give her a boost. That even when she is caught up with time, she is able to get 25 out of 33 because of the quotations. So quoting is good. Pick out those quotations that can help you defend almost each character trait of each character in the novel. But I also want us to look at this before we close our session. Answering questions on narrative techniques. This one is asking this student to explain the use of symbolism in the novel devil on the cross. His introduction is vague, and so I don't want you to even look at it. But well, these are some of the vague introductions that you give. You can also look at them and see, and also compare to yours. Her introduction was bad, and so it wasn't giving really good marks. But then I want you to look at how she answers. Remember, we said that narrative techniques bring out plot, themes, characters, feelings, and all that. I want you to look at this paragraph. Someone read for us very fast. We are going to read only one paragraph. The rest I will send. Read for us that paragraph.
The people with rags in Waringa's dream represent the exploited and oppressed people of Kenya who have had enough of their oppression and the exploitation being carried out in Kenya, such as the workers who protest against theft and robbery in Kenya, the workers who strike for an increase in pay, and the nationalists who started their ground and project their voice to fight against Madam, what's this word? Against
laws of vagrancy.
Against laws of vagrancy. This brings out the theme of suffering. The people of Kenya suffer as they are exploited by the elites such as Gitutu Wagatangwa, who
buys a chunk of land.
Who buys a chunk of land at 10,000 shillings, proceeds to divide the chunk into 100 plots, and sells each plot at 5,000 shillings for abominable profits. This brings out Gituntu Wagatanguru's character as exploitative as well as greedy.
So you can see that this child uses their point, where they point out a symbol, but they go ahead to explain how this symbol is effective. They explain how this symbol is effective in terms of bringing out a theme, and also explain how this symbol is effective in terms of bringing out a character trait. You can go ahead and explain how this symbol is effective in bringing out feelings in one paragraph. So effectiveness is very important when you're handling questions of narrative techniques. I want us to read through these slides very fast, and then we can go. Teacher Stephen will share with you these questions. You can, time wasn't enough, so most of the things we have rushed through, and yet I wanted to explain how to answer these sample questions. But then let me talk about lessons. When we are starting lessons, we have a habit of using proverbs. But I don't expect us to use proverbs. We do not use proverbs. Why? Because proverbs show that you have crammed the themes. It is just basic cram work. We want to see you be able to come up with your own sayings that are not necessarily themes. Sorry, that are not necessarily proverbs or sayings. For example, we say that first impressions can be misleading. That is a lesson in Pride and Prejudice. True love can overcome all barriers. Pride and Prejudice prevent understanding and harmony. Corruption undermines democracy and fairness. Those are lessons. You come up with your own statements according to what you have understood. Do not use, you can state your lessons looking like sayings or proverbs, but not the cram sayings of all that guilt has is not gold. Smanya, no pain without gain. What goes around comes around. That is cram work. We don't want those kinds of lessons. Let us come up with lessons from our own understanding and not those proverbs that are crammed from the English that we studied in O level when we were writing composition writing. So let's avoid those crammed lessons. These are sample introductions, a good introduction. You can read through, but let me read through one of them. I know you're going to take a picture and keep this. In Pride and Prejudice, Jane Austen presents, this is a question asking, describe the character and role of Mr. Collins in the novel Pride and Prejudice. Character and role. So this child goes on to say, in the Pride and Prejudice, Jane Austen presents Mr. Collins as one of the most comical, satirical figures in the novel, as a pompous clergyman and heir to the Bennet estate. So this child tells us about Mr. Bennet, goes on to say he embodies the flaws of vanity, servility, and lack of self-awareness. Through his character, Austen not only provides humor, but also exposes the shallow values of society that prizes wealth, connections, and status over genuine virtue. His role is therefore central in highlighting themes of marriage, social hierarchy, and the contrast between materialistic and idealistic views of life. So this shows us that you're going to take a particular direction while answering, that you're going to discuss Mr. Collins' character as pompous, Mr. Collins' character as vain, Mr. Collins' character as proud, and then go ahead and tell us what role he plays in developing plot, theme, other characters, and so on. Then we also have sample conclusions. These are very simple. You don't have to say much, but you just have to give us your standpoint. Therefore, Mr. Collins is portrayed as pompous, sycophantic, and self-important. Austen uses these exaggerated traits to mock social climbing. Generally, what does Mr. Collins bring out that you have analyzed earlier? So you conclude by telling us some of the things that you have talked about. So clearly you have talked about his exaggerated character and how it plays a role in bringing out certain themes and also other things that are affecting the people in our society. I think for now, that is it. Thank you very much. Time has not been on our side, but God willing, I have shared some of those PDFs in the chat. You can download them before the chat ends. And God willing, Teacher Stephen will give us another chance to expound on other novels, to expound on other questions, and then we can be ready for our exam. In the meantime, I think that is it for now. You can have a good evening.
Madam.
Yes, please.
Of all the four novels I have to attempt, you have just spoken of some novels that I don't. I only been.
Which novels do you do in section A?
It is Pride and Prejudice.
Then section B?
Poor Christ of Bomba.
Then section C?
Footprints of the Outsider.
Section C is short stories.
Walk in a Night.
Then Footprints. So you only do Pride and Prejudice among the books that we have talked about?
Yes.
I'm going to ask that we have another session where we shall explore those other books. Although you also need to know that when we start talking about Footprints of the Outsider, chances are high that those that are doing the monosociates will be lost. Those that are doing the other novel, apart from Footprints of the Outsider, will also be lost. Then we also need to know that if we talk about Pride and Prejudice, Then those that are doing tests of the double will be lost, and those doing great expectations will be lost. So the truth is, with literature, especially paper 2 and paper 3, you cannot satisfy what everyone needs. But the most important thing is for you to pay attention and understand the basics. Like we have said, the basics of this paper are these elements of the novel, which are plot, characters, themes, feelings, mood, and atmosphere, as long as you can explain them and also look at those essays that I have shared with you for you to know how you can structure your essay and how you can structure your answers in the context, you are good to go. So when you look at our different sections, we cannot satisfy everyone because, for example, in section C, you're doing a walk in the night. There are those doing in corner B, and there are those doing the voter. So if I start talking about a walk in the night and racial segregation and brutality and all those deaths and whatever, then the people doing the voter will be lost. So at the end of the day, we cannot all be at par. If we start talking about footprints of the outsider, then those doing vanishing herds, I don't think we have any. And the majority are doing the monosociates. The ones doing the monosociates will be lost. I hope you understand.
Okay.
Also, do we have, can I take only one question if there is any, or we can call it a day? It's already late, we should be ending. Okay, have a good evening and thank you for listening. I am so sure we have just rushed through this. It is a very wide paper, it needs time. We shall try our best and see if we can organize another shorter session to focus only on essay questions. And then maybe it would have been better if we had a chance to just explore context, then explore essay questions, because there are very many and they are different and they require different approaches. But for now, have a good evening and thank you very much. Teacher
Thank you.
Stephen, I don't know if you are there, but over to you.
Okay.
Question?
Okay, a minute. Just a minute. Jade, are you coming back? Yes, are you coming back? Okay, thank you so much for attending. We shall end here. We shall keep interacting and we shall share more with your teachers. Thank you and have a good day.